All right, it is the final Fast Cars, Fast Money video of 2021. Can't believe it. Like I said this in the Truck Series video, but it feels like just yesterday that we were recording our first video, and now we're recording the last one, and it's probably going to be one of our favorite ones to talk about. We're talking about the championship race at Phoenix with the Cup Series. Like we were talking about in the Xfinity Series and Truck Series, NASCAR actually has practice and qualifying this weekend, which is a little bit different than the normal, I guess you would say, the COVID kind of qualifying setup that we've seen this year. So we don't know where the drivers are starting at. The nice thing is with the Cup Series is they qualify on Saturday night and then they're racing Sunday afternoon. So we will at least have overnight, to potentially build lines. Whereas with the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, you only have a couple hours. It's 312 laps. It's the 750 horsepower package. It's actually the final race of the Gen 6 car starting next year in February. They're going to be going to the next Gen car. So all these cars will never see the track again unless they get somehow filtered down to the Xfinity Series. Was saying this in all the other videos too, but the main thing you want to do is just focus on those championship four drivers. You want at least two of them, potentially three, depending on how low you want to go on the slate. Use qualifying and practice a little bit, but still you want to just focus on the guys who've been good all year. Focus on track history, focus on the 750 horsepower package this year. I think if you do that, hopefully you can end out the year strong. That's what I know everyone's going to be trying to do. So let's talk about the top series, the most expensive guys up here. I cut you short, Coop, in the Xfinity Series. I feel like it's only right I let you start with the final series up here.
Yeah, same strategy. Plug in as many championship drivers as you can, mix it up. Larson is my favorite. Hamlin and Truex are probably my second two favorite. With that being said, I would not be surprised if Chase Elliott fails inspection again, starts from the back, is dialed in, has a fast car, and everybody lets him pass because it's the championship race and he fights for it. So I will be watching practice and qualifying closely, and we'll see. Just because they start from the back, that does not mean fade any of these championship drivers, because they will be right back up to the front before you know it and fighting for track position and leading laps. So that doesn't scare me. Where they start doesn't scare me. And I'm going to be having a spattering of all of these guys. And three championship drivers is my preference, but two is very viable as well, depending on where the rest of the field qualifies and what the reason for that qualifying position was. I mentioned it in the other videos, but if somebody has a really good practice and then for whatever reason gets a little loose or something in qualifying and it hurts their qualifying starting position, then those are the types of drivers that I'm targeting outside of the championship drivers.
100% agree, Coop. Larson, definitely my favorite play. He's been the best all year. I fully expect him to win this race. I fully expect him to dominate this race. Even with that being said, though, I will probably have a second championship four driver in my lineup. And I'm leaning at right now at Martin Truex, because he had one of the faster cars at Phoenix earlier this year. And he had I forget exactly what happened in the first race, whether it was a speeding penalty or something, but he ended up not ever having a chance to race with Larson for the win. But I fully expect him to be up there and pushing Larson the whole race. I'm probably going to say Denny Hamlin's my least favorite of the four championship drivers, but I mean, Hamlin's been so consistent all year long. It would not surprise me at all to see him up there. And then Chase, even though he won last year, I don't see him winning this year. I just think Larson has been the best Hendricks car all year, and I think they're probably going to be pushing for him to win this year.
Yeah, this Cup Series Final Four is, the championship four it's a good one. I mean, you have four drivers here who, arguably the kind of the best in the series right now. You could make an argument for any of them, but if this format didn't exist, Larson would be the champion by now. He would have this locked up. I mean, he has significantly more wins, more top tens. He's led more laps than, all the other drivers there. But with this format, that doesn't really matter. I mean, that helps you get to this race, and then it just comes down to this final race. So Larson could have an issue. You could get, hit on with a speeding penalty on pit road, a mechanical failure. You never know. But I agree. I think Larson has to be the focus. And then it comes down to, do you want to build more of a balanced lineup? If you do, you probably only want one other championship 4 driver in there. Or do you really just want to increase your odds of nailing, whatever that championship 4 driver is going to work out and go with 3 of them? I don't know which way I'm going to go yet. I think Larson is by far, the first guy you plug in, and then it comes down to, okay, who do you pair him with? Hamlin, you can make an argument for him. You can make an argument for Elliott. You could also make an argument for Truex. Like it's tough. So I would probably build maybe 2 or 3 lines, getting exposure to all 4 of those drivers up there, and then kind of building accordingly. We did talk about this a little bit in the Xfinity series and the Truck series, but if you do jam in all 3 of those, 3 of those 4 or 2 of those 4, it does make it more difficult to get to 9, the 9K range and the 8K range. But I think there's a lot of good value, especially in the Cup series. Like there isn't as large of a gap between the equipment as we see in the Xfinity series and the Truck series. So like, Kevin Harvick has a really good track history here. Same with Kyle Busch. Joey Logano has been really good in this package all year. Christopher Bell has been really good in this package. The guy who won the race in this package last week is at $8,200. So if one of these guys starts deeper in the field and looks like a good place differential play, and with a good finishing potential, I think they need to be considered as well. Maybe in favor of fading a championship 4 driver in hopes that, the 2 that you do have in your line are, the right ones. Because most likely the optimal lineup will have 2 of them. You just increases your chances of getting those drivers who work out and who dominate if you have 3 of them. But most likely the optimal lineup is probably only going to have 2 of them. But I guess we'll flip it back to you guys. Are there any drivers who you really like in the 9K and the 8K range?
You touched on him briefly. Alex Bowman is $1,800 cheaper than Byron, and then Elliott and Larson are the other Hendricks cars, and he's just way cheaper than them. And his results this year have not provided any rationale for that cheap of a price. So depending on where he starts, depending on how he qualifies, I love that price tag on Alex Bowman. And if he starts 15th on back for whatever reason, I absolutely love the play. I think it's a smash play.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on Alex Bowman. He's way too cheap this week. I actually don't mind Kurt Busch. This is, his last race with Chip Ganassi. Chip Ganassi's last race in NASCAR. So it'd be cool to see him, race really well, get a top 5 finish. As for the other guys, it really all depends on where they start. They all have really good speed. We've all seen them run well all year. All of these guys, well, with the exception of maybe like Almirola, but everybody through the 8 and 9K range, they've all run pretty well. And it really depends on where they start. Because if say Kevin Harvick, who we think is a really good play, qualifies 3rd, probably going to be tough to play him if you're trying to get a whole bunch of championship drivers and get some solid place differential points in your lineup as well.
Yeah, for the Truck series and the Xfinity series, maybe really just the Xfinity series. Well, I guess the Truck series with Creed, but I could potentially see some other drivers getting out front and leading this race. For this Cup series race, I have a hard time, picturing anyone else than those championship 4 drivers leading. So then it comes down to like, okay, if those guys are leading, like how can these other players in my line score points? Well, you think about place differential, you think about, finishing potential and potentially fast laps if those guys out front are in traffic. I love Logano and Christopher Bell. I think they're both too cheap. Both had really good speed here earlier in the year. Both have been really fast in this package all year long. So maybe once practice is done and qualifying's done, and it's like, wow, Larson and Elliott are so much faster than Hamlin and Truex. Maybe you do build a 2 dominator, 2 championship 4 driver lineup, and then come down and grab potentially an 8K driver to build a little bit more of a balanced line. Because if you get three of those guys, you have to really, ugly punt. And we're not really sure what ugly punts potentially might work without knowing the starting grid. But let's talk about the 7K range a little bit too. And I guess the 6K range we can throw the 6K range in there as well. But a lot of interesting plays in here. The only one that kind of sticks out to me in the 7K range without knowing qualifying would be Austin Dillon. I think this is a little bit of a misprice. I mean, Tyler Reddick's in the same equipment as Dillon, and he's significantly more expensive than Dillon. So I think Dillon is underpriced this week. And then Buescher and Briscoe, both of them have, been relatively good, relatively speaking, especially with compared to the guys that they're priced around. So if you are paying up, you're going to have to pay down for some of these drivers. And without knowing the grid, the initial thoughts would be I like Dillon, Buescher, and Briscoe of kind of the 7 and 6K range.
Outside of the championship drivers, Buescher will be most likely my highest owned driver. I think it's a sin that he's priced below Newman and priced as cheap as he is. He should easily be in the 7K range up there with, and Dillon, I think, is my favorite out of the 7K range. I'm not really planning on touching too many other drivers there unless they start way back. I just think even if he qualifies really well, Chris Buescher's had a really, really good year. And for him to be priced at 6,400, I think is just entirely too cheap. And I think he's going to finish strong and be just fine, and has a good shot at being in the optimal lineup because he's 6,400 is still in that range where you can plug him in with the championship driver. So I really like Chris Buescher this week.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Dillon and Buescher are probably the better plays before qualifying that we have right now. I don't mind Corey LaJoie. He's been really good in the 750 package, but if he starts inside the top 25, it's going to be kind of hard to play him. Outside of those guys, we really need some qualifying before we can go too much farther to really tell you anybody else. I mean, Matt DiBenedetto, this could be his last Cup race. Nobody knows what's happening to him next year. I'd love to see him back in the Cup car. He's been pretty solid, always outperforms the equipment or what he's in. Maybe not so much in this Wood Brothers car, but this Wood Brothers car isn't like, a Hendricks car or it is a Penske car, but it's not quite as good as the regular Penske cars. So it'd be cool to see him run well and maybe finish up his Cup career with a great finish. Outside of that, the lowest I'd go would probably be BJ McLeod. The other guys just never really show us too much. Maybe if you're a 3 championship driver lineup, you're probably going to have to go down and maybe grab like a Quinn Huff or a Balicki or Starr or somebody. But BJ McLeod in the 78 car is probably the lowest I'm going to go.
McLeod is as low as I'd like to go, but I also don't have an issue, again, depending on where he starts. David Starr, if he starts real deep but looked okay in practice, I don't have a problem going with him. He's racing in, I think, is it the Xfinity he's racing in? So he will have a little track time prior to the race. And again, like Rich said, if they start dead last, maybe a Timmy Hill or a Quinn Huff, I prefer them over the other punts. But yeah, I'm really going to have to wait and see if there's a really good value on a driver that I feel just had a really poor qualifying but still has a fast car and is starting really deep in the field, whether I go 2 drivers or 3 drivers in that championship range. And it's going to depend on where these punts start, depending on who I play and who I feel can offer the most PD out of that range.
Yeah, it's tough to sit here and tell you like, oh yeah, Josh Balicki is a slam dunk punt. You need to jam him in, like, because if he starts 30th or something, like, we probably don't want to play him. But if he starts on the last row, maybe he can't lose you any points, and it allows you to get Hamlin, Truex, Larson, Elliott, 3 of those guys in a line. I think Ryan Preece is going to be popular. I think Buescher is going to be popular. Briscoe, LaJoie, potentially Alfredo. A lot of people don't like to play Alfredo. So the problem is if all these guys start, high teens, early, low 20s, like they're not providing you a lot of value at that range. So it'll really come down to qualifying. And again, that's why we want to reiterate, like, go to our Twitter page. It's at FastCarsFM. This will update. Our interest levels will change. But one thing that won't change is focusing on these championship 4 drivers, for whether it's the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, or the Cup Series. That's really what we want to do. So that's really going to be it for me. Do you guys have any other things that you wanted to add to this video before we wrap it up for the year?
I'd just like to say I can't think of a better track to end the season on in the 750 horsepower package as far as an excitement and a leveling the playfield for the championship drivers goes. If we were in the 550 horsepower package, I think it'd be like literally a 50% plus chance that Larson takes it home. But with it being in the 750 horsepower package at a track like Phoenix, where the other drivers have shown speed earlier this year in a package that they've all kind of been on a more level playing field, I think it's going to be a really exciting finish to the NASCAR season. And I'd also like to say, for anybody that has followed us throughout the year or has listened to our videos and is listening to this one, I'd just like to personally say thank you. We had a great time providing all the content this year. We're excited to watch the race and hope that you have success playing with us, and we are excited to be back next year. So just wanted to give a thank you to everybody that's listened, that's subscribed, that has followed us on Twitter, and has provided us support. We're having a lot of fun doing it, and we're hoping that you're having fun with us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate all the support and everything. You guys have all the good comments, all the likes, all the retweets on Twitter and everything. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really means a lot. I mean, it's just, us 4 guys who just enjoy watching the races and, doing NASCAR DFS. And we just decided, hey, let's just kind of share our thoughts with other people, and people seem to like what we talk about. So, without all the support, we, probably wouldn't be doing this. So thank you guys for doing that. Like Coop and Rich were saying, but yeah, good luck this weekend. Be interesting to see who these championship, these championship drivers are going to be. I know we'll be tuning in and watching, and I hope you guys have a good off season, and we will catch you for the Clash at the LA Coliseum.